Welcome to the show. I'm Isha. Here in the studio, we have Rachell, and Rachell is going to speak with us on leadership. Welcome, Rachell.
Thank you for having me. My name is Rachell Jeanty. I am 27 years old. I live in the beautiful community of Randolph, Massachusetts. One thing about me, I just love involvement on so many different levels. And I've been able to challenge myself to really step out of different circumstances and to overcome so much. But I really account for the great people who've influenced me over the years. And in that, I've actually gone into working on the nonprofit side of things. I currently work for Big Cove Human Services. So I work with persons with developmental disabilities. I also go to UMass Boston, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in public administration. So it's a lot, but it's also been very rewarding in the process.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. So tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about leadership. And thinking back on leaders in my life, I remember I grew up in church, and I remember the elders as somebody who was well put together, as well as somebody who understood their role, as well as their responsibility to maintain an organization. And I remember seeing those elders, holding down those spaces that they occupied. And it also affirmed in me the ability to remember where I am in a certain space. So growing up, I continued to connect with the leaders and the elders in my church. A lot of them were actually very involved in my own community. As I continued to grow up and get involved, I noticed that there was one woman who was an asset in bringing together resources for kids in the community. And at the time, I didn't really have a lot going on, so I actually connected with her and was already just part of her organization. So she did like an after-school youth program. And so I would go around with her, and I would take time and out of my schedule to spend time with younger kids while I was a teenager. And then I realized that I was actually stepping into a leadership role, even though I was just 14, 15 at the time. So that, for me, looking back, was a great foundation as I continue to understand, what is leadership and what does that look like. But she was a firm example of someone who was timely, who was at the schools picking up the kids, who were providing resources for them, and staying late, making sure that they arrived home safe. So I understood those key components of really how to execute and how to effectively support other people who needed that type of guidance. So most definitely was a really good experience. I volunteered with her, and I continued to do that on and off throughout the years. As I got older, I decided to step into many different leadership roles, but it was usually behind the scenes. As I went to college, I was part of HASA, which is a Haitian organization. I was part of a dance team, and I would step into a role if they needed help. I didn't really hesitate. I more so opened myself up to, all right, let's do some work, because there needs to be work. There's always work that needs to be done. And I found myself, even amongst the successes and the challenges, really just living through it and understanding what needs to be done and being a good problem solver. So as a leader, issues emerge honestly all the time. And as we know, we wake up every day and there could be something that is happening, whether it's good or bad. But a leader is somebody who really understands how to tackle those issues and situations as they arise. So I grew up being kind of like the peacemaker, the one of how do we solve this issue? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I wasn't the one making the top decision, but I knew I was still a valuable person in the conversation when it came to solutions. So I really enjoyed stepping into those roles and being able to collaborate with other people, because it's always going back to the people. And it allowed me to really understand my voice and how important it is to advocate not only for myself but for those who I'm supporting. And it also allowed people to understand like how to communicate with me, and I felt like it was just a really good exchange of like conversation and collaboration and how to improve and how to continue. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't at all. I remember on my campus we were trying to start up a group, and that group required a lot of different components. We needed to get GPAs. We needed to have a head count of like 12 at the time. It was extensive. And to roll that out took years. So people don't always have years to spend on a project. Most people have maybe months. And so they take that into account when things are not pushing as quickly as possible. And so even dealing with different personalities, it's so important to know who you are as a person and as a leader, to say, you know what, this might be our season, but how are we going to push past that? And it can get really tough. And I think I've dealt with the nitty-gritty of it all, of people having different feelings and opinions, and people getting offended, people being supportive in one season, people not in another, and also people dealing with life. One thing I completely understand is that people have to go through their own lives, their personal lives. They have their own priorities. And so I never want to be someone to deter somebody away from handling what they have to do. And so as a leader, there has to be a level of understanding as well. Like, how are you taking care of yourself? How are you taking care of your responsibilities before you're choosing to participate in this certain thing? So I've learned even just how to navigate and really to ask more questions and to really be reasonable in the process, because everybody needs a listening ear. Everybody needs to feel supported at the end of the day, or it's not going to work. So recently, I became a manager for the first time, and I think that was a privilege, because I've always said I've worked behind the scenes, and I was very interested in stepping into that role, and it was actually a series of events that led me to come into the management position that I'm currently holding.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And before that, I realized that I was, a leader, but I wasn't occupying those top spots. So traditionally, I've been told, and I've seen in many different trades and avenues, that women sometimes struggle to get to higher positions. And it could be because of situations, maybe work dynamics. And I've actually wanted to challenge that for a long time, and to kind of ask that question of why aren't more women stepping up and trying to push themselves forward. I see that there is a lot of different pressures that come depending on that woman, depending on their background. But I did see an opportunity, and I'm so thankful that people supported me, because if I did not have that support, I don't think I would be in the position that I am as quickly as I was.
What were the obstacles that you mentioned?
Mm-hmm. I think the obstacles that a lot of women are facing is that they're very comfortable in certain spaces. It's kind of like I don't think I can. I don't think I'll prosper there. I don't see too many people representing that look like me. So it's almost a block that can hold back a woman. And also sometimes they just don't want to speak up and say, hey, I'm interested, when inside they're saying they're interested, but they don't really know how to vocalize that to upper management or a supervisor in order to get ahead. And so I challenge that way of thinking, to say, if you have the skills, and you might not even have all the skills, but if you know you're a hard worker and you see yourself in that position, what are you doing in order to build yourself to make it there? I think that everybody can excel if you're in one position and you know that You have 6 months before you can get a promotion. Work hard for 6 months. Challenge your manager. Ask, hey, what do I need to do? Make it very clear and transparent up front. What do I need to do in order to get into this position? And be fair with yourself. I think that's the honest part, because I think a lot of times if we have a good job, why challenge that? Why look around? Why step out into something new? And it could lead to change, and change in the moment might feel uncomfortable, but think about all the benefits. So this experience has most definitely even challenged me to look at, hey, you can make it from being a staff to becoming a manager. You can move up in your company. It's not like it can't be done. And even in my company, we have upper management directors who are women. So I actually do see that representation, and it's refreshing to know that they're occupying these spaces and they have roles of power. And that could be me if I really wanted to apply myself. It's, again, certain places, I understand that it can be tough. I understand that not every work environment is the same and looks like that. But I would most definitely challenge somebody that if you want this position and you believe in yourself, why are you holding yourself back from an opportunity that could be beneficial?
I'm glad to hear that you have the opportunity today, because most women are always fighting that whether they'll be heard or whether they'll be taken seriously,
right,
or whether they fall into the dynamics. So, amazed.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's another good point of being heard. A lot of women my age, it's really hard to communicate. And I think it's not just a woman thing. I think it's just people in general. We struggle of communicating our needs and our wants effectively to the people who can help us along the way. It might take even some coaxing, like, what do you need, And I find it even within my manager, who sometimes is not always there, but is a presence in my workspace. Sometimes she has to ask, like, what is going on with you? Like, how are you doing? And I have to stop and think, hey, I didn't actually tell her or keep her up to date about how I'm actually doing. I think it's so important to identify your needs early on, especially any emerging issues that you might have personally, because not everybody can see what you're going through the lens of you. Not everybody's working your job. Not everybody has your clientele and knows your workload. So it's super important to vocalize that not only to your manager, but people you care about, people who have your best interests, people who are supporting you, especially in your just in your life in general, who are there for you. I think
so. Communication is a must.
Communication. It's a really big area of leadership.
Amazing. Since you've gone through, navigated all of this, how did you turn out to be confident? And in your leadership role, how do you speak to many other girls and women in the community? Because you are a face of the community.
I will say that it took a lot to get to where I am right now mentally. And confidence is something I'm still growing every day. But the thing about it, I love what I do, and I love the area that I'm working in, the demographic. And that's why I stress it's so important to stay close to what you love. Even if you don't know exactly what you want, because I think it gets people confused, like, I don't know what I want to do. People will spend their whole lives chasing after different things when they should just stick to what they care about, what they're passionate about. So I've stayed with community, I've stayed with young people, I've stayed with local government, and it's proven to me to open so many doors. And as I step into each door, I'm finding myself encountering people who are excited. In that, I can match up with their energy and get excited as well. And I get that information and I bring that with me into my journey, so that when I see a young girl and I ask her, hey, you're in high school, you're entering college, what are you up to? They start telling me, and I start asking them, do you have a resume? What have you been doing? Have you been connecting with internships? Have you been meeting with people. These are things that I'm doing, and now I'm actually giving it to them.
Wow.
So it's kind of like a gift, and they understand that I'm going to come back to them and ask them and hold them accountable. And that accountability aspect is so good, because I realized as a young person, I didn't really have an older woman asking me these questions when I was young. So it's really a really good exchange when I have these conversations, and people are around. It's not like I'm just having these conversations with them one-on-one. It's usually in the community, maybe at the community center or at the library or within meetings that we have within ourselves. And it's just really good because they're thinking and they're moving. They just need that encouragement and that conversations. And that conversation actually pushes them into thinking more. And that's what we need, just more spaces that people can come together and just really talk things out and plan together on how we're going to help grow. So
it's also the inspiration. I think that when they see you, they feel inspired. Amazing leadership qualities you already possess, and you're already giving back to the community. Do you see that I'm sure you have hit hurdles. So when you hit hurdles, what was it that motivated you, that you pushed ahead?
Well, I would say the main thing that came to mind was really getting through graduate school full time, having the long days, having assignments, and then my personal life, having to deal with people and certain situations that I personally did not enjoy to go through. But I had to realize that, one, that every lesson is important to go through. Like everything in life, every test, right? There's a reason that I'm in this stage of my life, and I honestly had to remind myself mentally that I would get through it. Despite how tough it was, despite of how I felt, I couldn't let my feelings stop me from what I wanted to achieve. Because if that was the case, I wouldn't be where I am today.
How did you not falter? How did you not fall through the cracks like many others do? What is that one thing that led you that, no, I'm going to make it?
Right. I would say I had a motivation within me to really overcome, to get to where I am. Like I was really driven to graduate and to achieve my master's. I was also very driven to work hard to learn how to be an effective leader. And in my head, I had the vision of, you can be that. You can get there. So you can't stop here despite of how you feel. If you really want to make it, you have to go through this. It was almost like I, again, had to coach myself and remind myself, if you stop, it's really going to hold you back. You will stop. You're still going to get there, but it's going to hold you back, essentially. So it's a constant reminder of identity. First is identity. Remember who you are. Mm-hmm. Remember that you're strong. Remember that you're gifted. Remember that you have a calling that you have to fulfill. And I had to remind myself, despite of what people said, despite what I was thinking in those moments, that I can overcome. It was it's really tough. And I think that for many people, we fall into moments or periods of our lives that we don't feel confident or we don't have that motivation. And I'm not one to say that I never fell into that. There's been times in my life where I know I regressed and I wasn't progressing the way that I wanted to, but I didn't stop.
So you believed in yourself. Like you said, the first was identity. Mm-hmm. The second perhaps was believing that you will make it. Mm-hmm. That's why I think you pushed yourself. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, identity was a really big one. Just understanding who I am as a person and as an individual, and even just my purpose, right back to purpose. It's like, it's not about me. It's not always about what I can achieve, because I know that my work is going to be about people. At the end of the day, it's really about serving people, about helping this world be a better place when I'm gone. Mm-hmm. So it's not really about the temporary feelings that I have today. It's not about the obstacles that I face today. It's really about how can I grow myself in this moment in order to be effective tomorrow. So it did take a lot of time. It did take a lot of breaking things down, even just healing. I've been going through a lot of healing personally, of just trying to understand why I was able to feel certain emotions. And that takes a lot, especially in a society that doesn't really teach you how to heal and teach you how to talk and communicate, like we spoke about prior. And as a leader, you have to remember that you don't have a lot of time. You also don't have a lot of energy. Sometimes you don't have a lot of resources around you or support. So it's so important to understand who you are as a person, and that is going to keep you rooted. So that's where I've been able to kind of keep myself in certain times in my life.
So you see, what would you suggest to my audience? What were the primary pillars of your mission, or through the road, that journey that you've chosen until now?
I would say the primary would be communication. Has been essential. Communicating to people who are around me, talking things through, planning and processing what has occurred in order to really grow. Also, identity, really knowing who I was and understanding that I am a human being. And then also to see that I can dream, that I can get to a bigger and brighter place in my life where I feel more self-fulfilled. So I can get there and I will get there. And just really having that confidence at the end of the day that things will get better, and having that faith that regardless of the season that I'm in, whether it's good or bad, that I'm still growing as an individual.
Such well-spoken, priceless, Rachell.
Thank you.
I hope you have enjoyed the show, and Rachell will again bring in a new venture to us in the next series. Thank you once again for watching. I'm Isha.
I'm Rachell.